So we're going to go into initial authorization. So I'll probably pose some questions here. We don't have a lot of changes to our initial authorization, right? We know that initial authorization comes after eligibility. In eligibility, we talked about family access, and parents are sent out the application. Family access administrators, you receive the application, you review it, you review all the documents, you determine whether the family is eligible. They're determined eligible, right? They're determined eligible, and then you're entering in that information. And the last part of initial authorization we consider is the confirmation of provider, right? Confirmation of provider, we see that being separate from eligibility. Is that how it works? Is that how most of you see it now? Do you see eligibility separate? Do you see eligibility including the confirmation of the provider, or outside of confirming that provider? You can either use the chat or you can come off of mute. Does eligibility include confirming the provider?
I would say yes, it does, because they need to have a provider in order for us to process the authorization.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you again, does eligibility so we're seeing eligibility as one separate thing, right? Eligibility is eligibility, and initial authorization is what includes the confirmation of the provider. Monique said no, Nikki said separate, and someone else said separate, but we need to confirm that they have a provider. Yes, you do. So Carmen, can you tell folks why we're seeing it as two separate things?
Eligibility does not determine whether a family's having a provider does not determine whether a family is eligible or not, right? I could be eligible, not have a provider, because I either haven't searched or providers are full for my child's age group, but I'm still eligible for the child care financial assistance.
Yeah. You can be eligible, but there is not a confirmed provider. Absolutely, right? So eligible, Carmen, can you enter? And I'm asking some of these questions I might have the answer to, but as a family access administrator, can I start entering all the eligibility information in CCFA and not have the provider confirmed?
Yes, you can. What will happen is CCFA will produce an authorization, but the placement won't be entered. And I want to stress that the placement and the authorization start date should always be the same. You should never have, for example, an authorization that starts 11/1 and the placement that starts 11/15, because we want to ensure that the parent gets the full amount of time, okay? And I don't want to get into process, but there is a process available where you can enter an authorization, and then if the placement comes in a couple of weeks later, we can change that start date.
So in practice, right, I know, Carmen, you said you don't want to get into process, right? But what your family access administrators, Jeanette, I saw your hand. I don't know if you still have a question, but for some of you, that's the exact reason why you wait until you get the placement, so that those dates align. But what we wanna draw we want to make sure that you understand that the eligibility of family being eligible child care financial assistance is their eligibility. And so you may be able to say to a family, like, you are eligible for child care financial assistance. We just need your placement, right? We just need your placement to actually complete to complete your process, right? But they've just been determined eligible. We know that for some families, they're waiting. What we don't want to happen is we don't want families to believe that they're waiting because they're not eligible for the actual financial assistance part of it. And initial authorization, we also know that initial authorization, as you can see in front of you, it requires the confirmation of the child care, right? It provides the confirmation of the child. You have to have the provider confirmation. Do you have to have a confirmation of provider form to confirm the placement?
No, you can always contact the program directly, or even email them.
Yeah, can you say that again, Jeanette?
You can contact the program directly or reach out via email.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I know you had your hand up, you had a question.
I
What was the
did.
question?
It's just to relate to that, that I know Carmen said that the placement needs to match the authorization, sorry.
Mhm.
So if we determine a parent that they're eligible for the service and we put it in the system, I know it was said that, a couple of weeks after, we can write in the placement. However, then we have to change the start date if it exceeds a certain amount of time. I know it right now, the system, we can write it in 26 weeks, use pay stubs within 26 weeks.
Yeah,
However, if it exceeds 26 weeks, the parent took more than 26 weeks to find a provider. Are
that's a
we
long
requesting,
time.
and we have cases that we have parents
Yeah,
that they don't find a program because there's no spots available.
slots. Yeah,
So what do we do then? If we place it in the system, they qualify, we're waiting on a confirmation, it exceeds the time limit that we will have to either re-request paperwork, because we should allow the parent, as Carmen stated, the amount of time that they qualify. What should we do then? Do we re-request documentation? Because originally they did qualify. Now they don't have a provider. Do we re-request the documents?
if
Do
it's
we?
past 26 weeks, you'll have to, that income will no longer be, like that income will have reached, it's not gonna be acceptable at that point, right? 26 weeks is a long time.
Mhm.
I don't know, Carmen, do you disagree with that? Are you saying, Jeanette, if you've already entered it in with no placement?
Correct. So if we enter the parent qualifies, we know what their parent fee is. We can't have them sign the financial assistance agreement because we don't have a placement there. So it's not really set in stone because they haven't agreed to that amount, but
Yeah,
they're still finding a location. It can take 3 weeks, it can take a month, it can take a long time because we have parents with that situation that they, depending on their service or where they live, they don't find a close location that will be convenient for them. So what do we do then? Do we, again, like I said, either redetermine them? Does the system allow us to change the start date like it allows us now for 14 days?
I don't think the system will allow you to change it beyond the 14 days, not currently, right, Carmen? And federal rule allows us to locking the eligibility income for up to 6 months. We can't exceed that, so they would have to be redetermined.
It does the system, so right now just 14 days.
Right now it's 14 days currently.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this is why, like, some of what we're going to talk about might be a discussion, right? Because there are reasons why you would hold off for entering all the information. But what we want to make sure is that we're educating, right? Coming back to educating the family of what the process, that family who is taking a while, you let them know your income, right? Your eligibility determination is good for up to this period of time. Right, and if not, we will have to recollect your income information when you get up to 26 weeks. We'll have to recollect that income information. All right. So there's some tips on this slides, right? Tips for the families, right? Authorizations, we know they can be completed in person or virtually. I see a question about electronic signature. No changes have been made to accepting electronic signatures. But I do want to note that there are some families who are going to want to do things in person, and they should be allowed to do so, or you should be trying to make every effort to walk them through how to do it, right? You still may be able to accept their electronic signature, but it might mean for some, if it's a grandparent, they may want to come in person, right? And so we want to make sure we allow for that to happen. And on here, it's all things we've already talked about, taking time to explain the process. We know that initial authorization is the first step in authorization, right? There's initial, and then there's the secondary authorization. So you want to make sure you're informing families about the entire process, right? The family's going to sign that financial assistance agreement and parent fee agreement. You want to talk to them about what they're signing, right? What are you signing? Right? Telling them what they can bring in advance. If you need additional documentation, letting them know what it's for, right? Sometimes we just tell parents what we need, not why they need it. And you want to make sure when you're accepting electronic documents, that those documents you're accepting, when you print them, you can read them. Does anyone want to know why it's so important to make sure that whatever you receive electronically is legible? Why do we need to be able to print it and read it? Because they're legal.
Supporting documentation for the information you're entering.
Yeah.
They're legal documents.
Yeah. Federal
Why
documents.
else? Yeah. I'm surprised you guys aren't saying this yet. We need the documents for the file. Yes, you need the documents for the file. You need the documents for audit.
Gonna say audit.
You need the documents for audit. Audit needs to be able to see how you determine the eligibility, and how you determine the parent fee. And so we have to make sure that it's legible. So when they come out, thank you. Zoom user said auditing purposes. Yes, that's exactly right. We need to be able to make sure, and probably for your own auditing purposes as well. And here we've already talked about being flexible. You want to make sure you're flexible even in the documents that we're receiving. Whatever you're receiving, whatever you're sending out, make sure families know, how do you want it? You can pick it up, you can drop it off, you can email it. Proof why they qualify for state. Yes, Zoom user. Yes, Zoom user. So we have, within initial authorizations, families are either authorized for 12 months or for provisional, right? The standard authorization period is 12 months, right? And the only time of authorization shouldn't be 12 months. Oh, hi, Jen, sorry. Only time that the standard 12 months authorization shouldn't happen is if it's a provisional, right? So it's usually 12 months or provisional, 12 months or provisional. All right, and then we're gonna move into parent fees. I'm turning parent fees. I'm gonna open up parent fees, and then I'm gonna turn it over to someone from the team. What's new to parent fees is care is provided for 5 to 10 hours. It's full-time, and the parent will be charged a full day. This is where there is definitely a change. Can someone give me an example from the team of what this actually really means for a family?
So if a child is a school-age child and school has early release, the child's going to be 5.5 hours attending the program, they're going to be charged a full day instead of the part-time rate of the after school.
Is this in effect immediately?
Well, CCFA isn't up yet, right? So anything related to the hours, it's not available. It's not.
But it wouldn't be a CCFA thing. So if we have a child that attends program at like 12 o'clock and now they're in care for 5.5 hours, previously we weren't billing for a full day because it was less than 6. So just wondering if we're supposed to be starting that, I mean, like the intermittent, like school age intermittent.
Not yet. Intermittent
Okay.
is not, like, not yet. And that's related to a CCFA change, Heidi. Even though I know this says, Haley, I'm sorry. It is related to the way that you do billing.
Okay,
And those intermittent codes are all of the codes are going to be changing to enrollment codes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So does this change like the hours for camp? Like I know there was an issue last year
Mhm.
where a full-time voucher, was it 8 hours before this? So
Mhm.
before and after care wasn't being covered.
Someone would have to explain that to me on
Okay.
here.
It was like
Carmen,
an issue for a
Alicia.
minute.
You said it was, Karen, it was in relation to camp?
Yeah, it was, yeah, so I probably shouldn't be bringing it up on this.
Yeah,
but-
I don't know, but if it's related to the number of hours of care, you should I'll have it flagged. We have someone taking notes and we're also recording. So
Yeah,
I
I
want to
can
make sure
follow.
that we're able to talk about that. It will we'll be talking more specifically related to billing things in the provider experience.
Okay.
Pauline, I see your hand.
I am just very excited about this. And the reason I am is because we have a lot of children that's have IEP now, and they go to the public school, and the hours that they're there doesn't qualify. They're right between the 5 and 6. And a lot of our programs don't take part-timers. So we had to terminate a lot of those kids or try to find another option. So this is going to really be
Beneficial
to
for
a
some.
lot of families,
Yeah.
a lot of families that don't have someone else to care for that child.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So what else is new as it relates to parent fees? Our families are no longer going to be charged the initial weekly deposit for their first week to cover their last week of care. So I wanna highlight to cover their last week of care, right? If you're a program in the way that you're billing, the way that parents are billed is they pay the week before, then they pay the week before. But what families are not going to be asked is to pay a deposit to cover their last week of care. But if it's to pay for current care, I recently got this question. That's why I want to make sure I explain it. But if a provider's process is that families pay the week before, then that family would pay the week before for the next week of care. But we're not asking families for an initial week deposit to cover the last week of care. Gail? We can't hear you. You're on mute. Let me see if I can request that we.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, so the 5 to 10 hours is for parent fees will be full-time. Is that going to change licensing as far as full and part-time capacity?
That's a good question. I'm not sure where it causes a conflict for licensing. So I can get back to you on that question.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I'll bring it back.
Hey, Tyrese, it's Alicia. I know that
Hey,
I see a lot of
Alicia.
school age questions regarding these hours clarification. I'm going to talk about the early release days during the provider experience and the reimbursement on how that works. So that will be clarified because we had to make a few changes as it relates to, because that is a major change for early release days. So I'll describe that during the provider experience. So it'll be a whole reimbursement section.
Yeah. Thanks, Alicia, for clarifying further. Yeah, there were, there will be some new codes in relation to intermittent because of this change. Was there any other questions?
Yeah, sorry. Let me
Mhm.
put my video on, sorry. I did have a question. The 5 to 10 hour, so if you look at a voucher, that means a full-time now is anywhere from 5 to 10 hours and your part-time is just the 4 hours? You know, like if I'm looking at a voucher, it says FT for full-time, either the 3 or 5 days. So now if I'm looking at a voucher and it says full-time, that's 5 to 10 hours. And if it says part-time, what is that? So I
So
just want to
what
make sure we're
you want to
charging
know
them the
what
right
is
fee.
the daily bit. So we're not going to talk about reimbursement, right? So during the provider experience, we'll do that breakdown.
No,
so
not
your schedule-
reimbursement. It's more parent fee. It's not reimbursement. It's the parent fee. So you have a full-time parent fee, part-time parent fee. So now if full-time is considered 5 to 10 hours, we're charging them the full-time parent fee.
And it would be 3 to, go ahead.
Yeah, the parent fee would be based off of the reimbursement. So it would be the daily, what we're gonna be paying you.
Oh,
the
okay,
daily
you'll do that
reimbursement.
later
Yes,
on.
It
Okay.
is,
All right,
it's
sorry.
still
Okay.
commingled. It's still considered
It's
the
just because
daily
I was like,
reimbursement rate, yeah. And
I was
then
working
the-
on vouchers,
Yeah.
and my budgets, and I saw a part-time full, and then I saw this, I was like, oh, so that totally changes everything, like how we charge them and stuff. Okay, well, sorry about that.
No problem.
All right.
Yeah, no, no problem. It all connects. We've been trying to make sure we're intentional about separating it so it doesn't all get mixed in to the way that we talk about parent fees with families, so that they understand what they're expected to pay. Our billing goals, anything related to billing, reimbursement will be addressed in the provider during the provider experience. And yes, billing codes will change. So the last thing that's new is that we're just asking that programs have their own policy regarding collection of parent fees. EEC is not setting the policies regarding the collection on the parent fees. All right, and I'm going to turn it over to my team to talk about parent fee scales, and I'm going to just do the key points here, which are that there are certain families that are exempt from parent fees, and so those are our homeless families, our DTA, our DCF families, and our caregiver families. And then families who are receiving part-time care, which most of you all knew that, they're only paying 50% of what the full-time fee amount would be. And sibling fees are also discounted, right? You have multiple children, your fee will be discounted. And families are assessed, they're reassessed their fee at reauthorization. What we know is that the fee cannot exceed the original assessed value until the parent's next reauthorization, right? Families' incomes that are less than the federal poverty line, experiencing homelessness, or within the provisional assistance don't pay a parent fee. With the changes that were made to parent fees, a lot of parents have low fees or no fees, right? And so what's most important is to make sure that our families, that our families understand like what the parent fee is, how it's determined, and and then how they should pay it. This is an example, and this example is actually looking at the parent fee scale before we made the SMI change, so we need to update this. But what you'll see here is just an example of a 2-parent household and what their parent fee is. You'll see that their parent fee is $6.96. And it's the way that the parent fee is calculated. It's calculated based on the gross income and the needs of the child, but the parent fee is determined based on any income that's over the federal poverty line, right? That's over the federal poverty line, and it should be somewhere between 7% or less. For this parent, they're paying only 4% of that amount that's over the federal poverty line guidelines. The easiest way to help a family, if a family's saying, what would my parent fee be? The best thing to do is either to work with that family or to direct them to the parent fee calculator on EEC's website. All right. So who wants to take over on changes to parent fees?
I can do changes to parent fees.
Yeah, thanks, Brenda.
So once a parent fee amount is determined at authorization or reauthorization, the parent fee amount cannot be increased before the next reauthorization unless there's an error in prior calculations, or unless it previously decreased. So if a parent had a change and it decreased, and now they had another change and it's going back up, it can increase, but it just cannot exceed the original master parent fee. So the parent fee can decrease if the parent's income changes and it decreases if there was an error in prior calculations, like we said, and if there are family reports a change that affects their parent fee. I think that's it. And all changes do take effect the next business day after the change has been reported and documentation is received. That's it.
Any questions or simple? Not many changes here. All right. Attendance and approved breaking care. Fun. Are folks ready to talk about this? Oh, is my screen jumping for you, or can you see the next slide? Can you guys see the new slide?
Yep, we see it.
Right. So billing is enrollment based. Currently, billing is enrollment based, but we're using a workaround within our system to be able for it to be enrollment based. We will be updating all of our what are considered now attendance codes. We will be shifting to enrollment codes, and Alicia will be reviewing that during the provider experience, what those changes are, and what they mean for you, and how and what codes you'll use. The code for enrolled and not attending will be was removed. It should already have been removed to reflect this change. So I'm going to pause before I move on to the other changes. Any questions? Non-approved breaking care is defined as a childcare placement that's been inactive. That means it hasn't been used for more than 30 consecutive days. It's going to be 30 consecutive days during a 12-month period and more than 20 days during a 12-week provisional authorization, right? Unless the family has requested an approved breaking care. What I want to highlight here is that what has gone away is the phrase of abandonment of subsidy. There's no longer an abandonment of subsidy. There's either a non-approved breaking care or an approved breaking care. Right? And providers must create policies that include how they're going to talk to families when absences are excessive. Right? When absences are excessive, it's going to be really important that providers talk to families around their expectations. We've been saying all day, educate. You want to make sure that you educate families around attendance and what the attendance expectations are, and if their child's going to be absent, what to communicate about. And also, we want to be able to talk to them about what is an approved breaking care, so that they know what's available to them if they have something happening for them. And Carmen, I believe I'm turning it over to you and Brenda.
Yep, it's going to be going to me and Carmen.
Okay.
So on this slide, it's just defining attendance. So an absence is defined as any days that a child is authorized to attend, but they're not in attendance. So the family must inform the provider when a child is going to be absent. Like we said, the children are expected to attend their program, and the providers must create a policy that includes how to counsel the families when absences occur. And the providers are required to implement methods of tracking the child's attendance and maintain these records for their program. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that.
So you had a question in the chat. So if a child has poor attendance, do we still give them a warning from EEC? What are you defining as poor attendance? What does that mean?
I had a child that would come maybe once or twice a week and then not come, and then come back once or twice a week and maybe not come. Is that acceptable still, or is that something that we would, give them the warning from EEC?
So how many days was the child absent? Was it a non-approved break in care? Was it consecutive 30 days?
Not consecutive, because they would come in just, enough to not be consecutively 30 days.
Yeah. And so what did you do with that family?
Well, we continued to try to reach out and eventually ended up terminating because she just wasn't using the care at all. But I have had other families that will miss several days in a row, but not 30. So we don't necessarily terminate them for that or anything, but I'm just curious to see what or how we could improve this and this attendance. Some families have vouchers, but then only come before and after school, school age program. So they they don't come at all in the mornings. They come in the afternoon. Other families, they have a split household, so they may come on dad's time, but not on mom's time. So how would we, deal with that type of situation?
Yeah, so that type of situation doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like they're intentionally absent. It sounds like that's based on what the family's condition is. Right.
Okay, so
right?
that wouldn't really
Yeah.
qualify here.
Well, it's saying
we looked into also we do have like a flex schedule. You can, if the parent, you can offer her, hey, these days what's convenient to do? We have a 3-day flex, a 2-day flex, or you have certain days specific to, these are the days the child actually attends. So if, let's say, it's just Tuesday and Friday, change their contract or request the resource at the childcare circuit or the resource center to modify or change their schedule to those specific days. So it's not counted as they're not attending. It's just those are the specific days this child can attend.
The thing is, Jeanette, most programs don't have that because of the way like the budget works and all that don't have the ability to do that, right? Like not every program has that. I might just put a comment in the chat too about that. Like we wouldn't be able to do that because I don't even know how to explain it, but it's a 5-day option only. Like some programs have like part-time, you can choose your days, but most are 5-day only. And I think that's pretty consistent. I would think that's pretty consistent, at least with the programs that I've spoken to.
Yeah, so I'm just with in the part of Teresa.
It's a great suggestion. I love it.
Opening.
So
we're opening a subsidy for parents, and if we're going to be giving this accessibility to them, they should also have the option. Okay, these are the days that I really need childcare. So why does not the program also have that? Yes, we're going to get paid for 5 days, but parent can't pay 5 days. Parent could pay 2 days, 3 days, maybe 4. But that's something that they should have an option, and the program should also have that flexibility with parents.
Yeah, so what Jeanette is highlighting is that like an absent is that you're supposed to attend that day and you didn't attend. What I'm hearing is the family never intended on attending that day. The family intended on using that care intermittently or flexibly, and the program actually does not meet their needs. And so I think, so that's different. So when we talk about attendance, right, an absence is defined as any day that a child is authorized to attend an early education and care program, but is not in attendance. The family must inform the provider when a child will be absent. But it sounds like in these instances, these families have said, I can't attend, right? Or they may have said, because they have no choice, they need the after school program. And so you're saying, well, we only do a 5-day program and you're a voucher family. And so they're going to take the 5 days, but they actually really don't. But then we're saying these children are excessively absent, but they're not. They're not. And so this is why, so you'll see that you're not going to hear us talk about excessive absences. Right? We're going to talk about an approved breaking care, absences, or a non-approved breaking care. And we want to make sure that we're informing parents. Children should be like, for children who are in full-time care and full-time all-day programs, it's important for them, even for those children that are in out of school programming. That's important for them too. And if the children are absent because they're actually absent, we want to make sure we're communicating with the family, seeing what we can do to assist them and assess whether it is the best placement for them. And when it's neither of those things, yes, we want to communicate with them that they potentially are at risk of losing their assistance. Approved breaking care. I'm turning it back over. Oh, Kelly, you have a question.
Sorry, yep. So I just wanted to clarify, and I hate to keep going back to this, but the unapproved breaking care, this is actually a change that's sort of in the opposite direction for families, because we've been allowing up to 60 days. And I'm just wondering, is this only up to 30 days in effect now or not yet?
So the next slides are approved and non-approved breaking care. So and then you can ask your question. Just don't forget it. All right, I'm turning it back over to Brenda and Carmen. Here we go.
So a non-approved approved breaking care hasn't really changed either. It's for a parent that needs a break from care due to any of the reasons listed there or something else, right? For example, we say a break in care for the summer or a visit to a non-custodial parent. But what about a parent that is looking for a different provider, relocating and needs to find a different provider? You can offer an approved break in care there, which would allow them the 90 days without having to place their name back on the wait list. It has to be at least 10 billable days, more than 10 billable days, right? And as I said, the approved break in care is for 90 days. And during this time, the parent does not pay a parent fee. The provider does not have to hold the slot, okay? And EEC is not paying for the slot either. So parents should always be counseled as to what they're eligible for. You know, if you take an approved breaking care, just know we can't hold the slot for you. You don't have to pay a parent fee, but when you come back, that slot may not be available. Always remember that when a parent comes back, if you don't have that slot available, what would you do? Let me just put it out there, okay? What would you do if a parent comes back and you do not have that spot available and you are a contracted provider? I'm not speaking to the RNRs. What would you do? Anyone?
How to assist the family with finding a slot somewhere else?
Refer them to the RNR.
RNR.
Oh, you guys are good. You guys are good. Yes, you would refer them to the CCRNR to help them find another slot. So you don't put them back on the wait list. You don't tell them, you know, they're no longer eligible, whatever. The other thing I wanted to say about an approved breaking care is that an approved breaking care, you can do it during the 12 months authorization, or let's say the 12-month authorization is due to end and the parent says, you know what, I need an approved breaking care. They can do it at the end. Just keep in mind, CCFA will add 3 months to that authorization. Okay, so the parent really needs to reauthorize when they come back from that one. So if they do it during the 12 months, they don't have to reauthorize. If they do it at the end of the 12 months, they do need to reauthorize, right? Because authorizations are only good for 12 months. Does anyone have any questions? Did I miss anything? You guys are good? All right.
I'm sorry, it's me again. I just want to point out there that I also with the approved breaking cares, when it's from contract to voucher, if they're going, the slot is not open, they don't have the availability, when they send it to the R&R, if they can send a file with the foundational and the approved breaking care, so we have that history of the paperwork for that client.
Okay. One thing, that's a good thing to note, Jeanette. One thing I want to stress as well that I didn't, is that it's for 90 days. Okay, please make sure that when the parent fills out the approved breaking care form, first of all, you give them a copy. And you also stress, listen, the child needs to be back in care by this date. The CCFA will shut down the authorization. Okay, so just please make sure that they understand that they need to contact you, and the child needs to be in care. A placement needs to be entered by I'm going to say by the 90th day. I would say hopefully before that. Okay. Back to you, Tyrese. Yes, it's back to me. Returning from an approved break-in care. Someone returning from an approved break-in care during the 12 months, the first question should always be, have there been any changes, right? Because just because they're on an approved break-in care doesn't mean that they don't have to report changes. So if during that time they've lost their job or something, just make sure you ask them, and then you would handle that appropriately. Because we don't want it to be that they report the change at the end of the authorization, not knowing that they should have reported it sooner. If there are no changes, you can just enter the placement in and everything stays the same. You would use the same income information. Actually, CCFA shouldn't shorten it, so you should be able to enter the placement. If they return, as I said previously, and they don't have the slot, make sure that you counsel them, send them to the R&R. They can come back, as it says here, they can come back from an approved break-in care and be issued a provisional. So that's not, that's not, oh, you're not eligible for that. Once the 12 weeks kicks in and within 12 months, if they're eligible for the provisional, right? So just keep those caveats in mind. And that's pretty much it. You're going to keep going, huh? Non-approved break-in care. Okay. Child is absent 30 consecutive days during a 12-month authorization or 20 days during a provisional. Just make sure, as they said before, we're moving towards enrollment-based. Make sure you counsel your parents. What's going on? Why is the child not attending? Is there anything that we need to do? Do we need to switch it up a little bit? I think what we're trying to get to here is we don't want parents losing their care, because it's just a vicious cycle. They lose their care, they lose their job, they're back on the wait list. Let's try to keep people, families stable, children stable in care. So just make sure that you counsel parents, let them know that they should be attending as authorized, and especially if they're getting close to that 30-day, and it's basically 30 days of not using the placement. I know this is a new definition, but it's 30 days of not using a placement that's in CCFA. Okay. Next slide. As I said, so I'm going to reiterate, reach out to folks, talk to them. What's going on? Anything I can do? Should we put you on an approved break-in care? Here are your options once they tell you what their situation is. You are the experts in the field. You know what families are eligible for and not eligible for. You know what they're risking, right, by not doing X, Y, Z. So always, always, always speak to your parents and see what's happening. And try to get a better understanding of what they would be eligible for.
And Carmen, you did have one question a couple questions that came up in the chat. One was, does PACE EEC require us to send foundations, I think the documents, along with the breaking care form to all families, or just not issued by us, the provider? Evelyn, I'm not sure if you maybe want to come off of mute.
Evelyn?
She may not be able to.
Okay.
And then the 20 absences during provisional, also consecutive. Can you please?
It is.
Yes.
So they're both, it's consecutive. Consecutive is the key word to remember for the non-approved breaking care. The other part, I wanna reiterate the importance of educating your families, right? Where when you're talking to a family about an approved breaking care, you should also talk to them about what a non-approved breaking care is and what the consequences are for the non-approved breaking care. And so when you're asking, what do we send to a family or versus what do we send to the CCR&R, you're going to send the information that is most critical about that family. You know, you heard Jeanette saying, can you send me all the information so that I have the history in the file? It's important for us to be able, as partners, to know what happened for the family, to be able to advise them and educate them and inform them of what they need, right? And what is required moving forward. If it actually happens to move past and if it happens to move to some kind of consequence, a negative consequence. Kristen?
So if I'm understanding this correct or reading it correct, basically a non-approved break would be 30 consecutive unexplained absences in another term. Okay, so it's basically a parent has had no communication with the provider can't get in touch with them, but it would be different if it's just been absence after absence, child sick, parent can't get the child there. If that goes over 30 days, that's okay.
Yeah, is it 30 consecutive days?
And we'll say 31 consecutive.
I have a parent.
Remember, people first, right? So what you just explained, Kristen, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying parent couldn't get the child there, right? That's very different than a parent has completely not shown up at all. You've called the parent week after week and still no contact. You've reached out to the provider and said, hey, did you call the parent? Right? You've done all the things. That's very different than what you first explained. Maggie?
I have a parent who told us that she needed to go back to Africa to check on a sick grandparent.
Yeah.
She was only going to be gone a couple of weeks. Now it's gone on 4 weeks. She said she's going to be back soon.
Is that explained or unexplained?
Well, it's explained, but it's been, so as long as it's been explained, it's fine. When does it get to be too long?
So did she apply for an approved breaking care at all?
No.
Was she offered an approved breaking care?
Yes. But she was only going to be gone 2 weeks at the time. Now, I feel like I should send it to her and have her fill it out because it's going on far too long as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. And to piggyback off of what Tyrese was saying, you know, when you're explaining these policies to parents, it should be done at authorization. It should be done at reauthorization. never assume that because a parent has been reauthorized, has been in care, that they're gonna remember all the policies and all the requirements. So as she keeps saying, educate, 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 remind them so that, you know, when something comes up, they can say, oh yeah, she said something about this. Let me rely on you, okay?
Yeah, just to add, and it seems like Maggie, you're already thinking this in your mind, like this family might be in crisis now. You know, they have a sick loved one, thought it was only going to be a small amount of time, but now it's turned to 4 weeks. And they're not thinking about all the things that you need as a family access administrator to make sure that their care is continued. But you giving that reminder that maybe it's time now, I know initially, but we don't want you to lose your child's care financial assistance. So this might be better for you. And I think a family would be grateful for that reminder at this moment that, yeah, let me do this. And then that gives them a little more time to figure it out so that they could come back into care before those 90 days.
Karen?
Hi, Carmen, I have a family that is in crisis right now. I have not offered them the approved break-in care because of what's going on in their family. I really just didn't want to. I was gonna give it a month. Is that okay to do that?
Yeah, I mean, depending on what the situation is, you can, you know, just
The
let them know.
child
And we
is
can
in
talk
a
about
medical facility. Yeah, the child is in a medical facility for we don't know for how long.
okay, yeah. We can talk offline, absolutely,
All right, I'll call you. Thank you.
no problem.
All right, is there another? I thought I seen another hand.
I think there is some folks in the chat, and I'm just seeing one. What happens after 30 consecutive days? Did we already answer that? What happens after 30 consecutive days?
What currently happens, right? What currently happens? Because we went over like what's changing. The opposite side hasn't changed. So what currently happens? What do you currently do? Because there's a lot of silence. I believe there's some reluctancy, right? Like, what do you currently do?
2 weeks notice.
What was that?
Issue a notice of termination.
Carmen?
So
This
we
is-
typically reach out to the parent again. So if we see that they're taking longer than expected, we reach out to the parent and let them know, you know, these options are still available.
Mhm.
If they don't answer, then, you know, right now it's 60 days, I believe, as of right now.
Hmm?
To my understanding, if they do not fill out the approved
It's
break-in
not
care.
that bad.
This is a storm bag.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Carmen, if it's 60 days as of right now, if they do not fill out the approved break-in care. And then 90 days if they do fill out the approved break-in care, because the 30 days hasn't officially started.
I think we're talking about two different things. I think one of the question was what happens if there are 30 consecutive absences? So I may be misunderstanding the question. If there are 30 consecutive absences, we are not saying you have to terminate. It is, I believe the way it's worded is the provider, you know, has to counsel the family and should determine whether a termination is required or warranted. It's always speak to the family first and try to get clarification as to what's happening.
Yeah, but typically the program reaches out to the R&R and lets them know hey, this person has excessive absences. As of right now, they will reach out and say, hey, this termination, they have excessive absences. We, as the R&R, reach out to the parent. So I know that the programs reach out. Sometimes they're not able to get in contact with them. So because it's a voucher, they reach out to us and say, hey, we tried to contact this parent. You know, I have to issue a termination because they have X amount of absences. We receive that. We reach out to the parent. Again, sometimes we are able to reach the parent, sometimes we're not. And if at that time, if it is a voucher, we typically give them the options. You know, you are up, 30 something days, or you're more than 10 billable days. These are the options you have. Do you need it? So I'm not sure if that falls in the line of the 30 consecutive absences.
If the provider is reaching out to you has been unable to contact the family, and you guys, that's the part that is very important, that you are not just automatically issuing the termination. You're reaching out and saying, hey, this is what we've been notified. What's going on? Anything we can help you with? And if you're still not getting any response, then yes, I would say that at that point in time, a termination would be warranted.
And can I just ask, Jeanette, when you're doing that, when you actually reach a family that a contracted provider is having trouble reaching, what are you hearing from that family for why maybe they're not getting back in contact with the contracted provider?
They can say, I was on vacation, or I'm exploring another program, or I had I send my child to vacation somewhere. So those are typically what I get. But, I do tell them, hey, you can reach out to us and let us know as well to your program, and we can give you options. And that's what I usually get. But I always tell them, and I always tell my program that I work with, did we give them then approved breaking care? That's my goal too, is always approved breaking care when it comes to my program that I work with. And they're very good with asking the parent after, even when they're going to leave their program, how long it's going to take you to get another program. And they will tell me, Jeanette, this parent's leaving the program. Here's the end of placement or the last billable day. And then I reach out to the program and say, to the parent, and ask them, how long is going to take you? Not only the program is doing it, but I'm also asking because I do want to be able to place that approved breaking care if it's needed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a great example of like the collaboration and what Carmen's talking about and what we've been talking about the CCRNRs, like we're family access administrators and working together around the family where the family might not be comfortable to tell the program, I'm actually exploring something else, but they might be comfortable with the CCRNR, and then the CCRNR going back and forth and coordinating really what the family needs, which is an approved breaking care while they're finding another one. So thanks for pointing that out and highlighting that for us.
So I intentionally put it back as a question, right? Because it can be written in policy in one way, in practice it's another way, because we're talking about people. And so what I want to do is say thank you for not terminating families and recognizing the conditions of their life that is happening. Like, life happens for people. Right. And so there's no like, oh, I got you here. Right. You're actually like, well, I actually know that there were things going on with that family that they actually may not have ever said, but you knew they were existing. And so you were trying to work and accommodate that family. So it's okay for us to have these kind of discussions because they're necessary to talk about how it's actually working out there with families and where we may need to make additional shifts in our policies. I know there were two hands. I see one right now. I know, Winnie, your hand was up at some point. I don't know if you got your question answered or you just, oh, there it goes. Winnie and then Tina.
Hi, I'm Winnie. I just have a question. So the 30 days consecutive absence, it has to be unexplained or it can be explained? Because we have...
It has to be unexplained.
Okay, because we have a couple of families, they would want to go back to China to visit their family, but
Mhm.
they're telling me that 2 weeks vacation time is too short for them. They are requesting an extended vacation time, about 3 weeks. I'm not sure how we should handle in this situation, because we talked to the family about approved break-in care, and they understand that we cannot hold the slot for them, but they really want to keep the slot when they comes back.
So it sounds like they're opting out of the applying for the approved break-in care because they want the spot guaranteed for them, right?
Yes, they want to
Yeah.
take the vacation time, but they also want us to secure to keep the slot for them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So in this situation, how
it's explained, so it's fine. You know what's going on with the family, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Tina?
Hi. I've just heard a lot of unexplained. I thought we've always could only have 3 unexplained absences, and then because our families are really good because we use an app. They either call us or they tell us through the app if a child's being absent. So Carmen, is the 3 unexplained gone away? If people are going 30 days with unexplained absences, I guess I'm just asking that question.
They want to hear it from you, Carmen.
I'll let you answer that, Tyrese.
So what everyone is highlighting is that there are changes to definitions. I encourage you to read your regulations. The regulations have been written in a way that are readable for everyone, and they're simple and concise. If you may have noticed, I have not talked a lot about a definition of an excessive absence, and that was intentional. Right? There is an approved break-in care, there's a non-approved break-in care, and then there are explained absences and there are unexplained absences, right? And so the simple answer is there's the 3 days are gone. Right. And I can't speak to it. That's why I'm tagging Carmen, because I can't speak to what was. I only know what is. I only know looking ahead, and that's because I'm new. I'm sorry, I'm new. So it in some ways, some of this is easier for me because I'm learning. You know, I was learning as we were making the changes.
I don't know if I was clear, but when a parent is opting out of using an approved break-in care, please remember they're expected to continue to pay their parent fee. So they should be informed of that, okay?
Yeah. Can you say that loud for everyone in the back?
Right. So you've offered a parent approved break-in care, and for whatever reason, they choose not to. They opt out of that. Please make sure that you counsel them and let them know that they are expected to continue to pay their parent fee. Okay.
So in practice, what that looks like for a family, right, is they're taking a 3 week and they would be responsible, right, to pay their parent fee. I'm guessing do most programs give families a certain, like give families a week off? Is it a week? Do families get vacation breaks? They don't? They don't? Carmen's saying no.
They can take a vacation, but they're still expected
expected to pay that fee. And so what, you know, this is why it's important to educate your families, right? In approved break-in care, they're not required to pay the fee, and they could be at risk of losing their slot, but these are your families. And so you can tell the family, you could say to the family, we'll hold your slot. You actually have the ability to say that. The program has the ability to say that. So for those of you who are the program and the family access administrator, you know, think about that when you're counseling your families. I think there are additional questions, and then we'll have to move on. Bethany, I can't fully see the chat for some reason, so I'll need you to read the question.
Yep, just getting to it. All right, so we were saying that some folks, so Eugene is just posting where you could find the regulations. Will EC still pay their portion of the childcare slot if a family opts out of an approved break in care?
Yes.
Okay, there was a question earlier about a 2-week notice. Is that part of the, like before they have the?
Yes, so
Break in care?
as before, if a family lets you know that they're going on an approved break, you are you are entitled to put that in 2 weeks. You are entitled to your 2 weeks notice.
And
Okay.
yeah, business days versus just days for the counts that we've given on the 30. Are they business days or calendar days?
So those would be business days because the child has not attended for the days that they're scheduled to attend. So business days, not calendar.
Yeah. And team, correct me if I'm wrong, but just as you're moving past this section, what I want to just bring it back to is like the family and your relationship. Just working in after school setting myself, I knew that every day my agency had a policy that I'd check in with the family if a child was absent. I'd make sure that if I didn't hear from the family, I knew that. So I don't think we're saying that we're changing any of that. That communication you have on an ongoing basis with the family around if a child's sick, if they're not going to be there, if they're going on vacation, or not know, those are things that you're going to continue to do in addition to what you're hearing from us now.
Of course. I like the communication every day too.
All right, are we ready to move and change reporting? I didn't see any more hands. All right. That felt uncomfortable, so I'm gonna recognize that that felt uncomfortable, and I don't know, I don't know if that's an uncomfortable thing to talk about in general, because it feels like we might be making it more flexible for families, but it sounds like you were already being flexible with families. And meeting their needs. So I'm just calling that out, just recognizing the space that we're in. So we're gonna talk about change reporting, which this is gonna be another shift of language, right? You're used to hearing non-temporary versus temporary changes, and now it's renamed to changes that are required to be reported within 30 days, and then changes that a parent can report at reauthorization, right? And they can also be reported at any time if it works in the best interest of the family, right? So that's what's new to change reporting. That's it. Is that we did some renaming here. Okay. So these are the changes that must, right? The changes that must be reported within 30 days. The first one is income exceeding 85%. Do families know if their income is going to exceed 85%? Someone come off of mute. Can't really see you guys. Do families know that?
No.
No.
So what do you tell your families about income, about reporting income?
I was gonna say they should, because we provide them with a notice. I mean, they may have forgotten, but we do provide them when they are processed of what their income needs to stay below for them to maintain a subsidy. So they've probably forgotten by the time it changes, but they should have been counseled on that originally.
Yeah. So you know what I would tell my families? If just report. If you have income changes, just report them.
Right.
Just report them. Let us figure out whether it's over or under. We'll let you know, but just know that even if your income goes up, nothing's going to happen within the 12-month authorization, right? Nothing's going to happen for them. So report your income. They're not going to know, or they're not going to remember, like you said, Haley. They're not going to remember. Some of them, let's not say everyone, but some will not remember what their income must stay under, right? if there's a change and they've moved out of Massachusetts, they must report that, right? Eligibility is you have to be a Massachusetts resident. So we need to know if a family moves. We need to know if they move anyways, because we have to have up-to-date family contact information for us to be able to communicate effectively with parents. Changes in household composition that are gonna last more than 30 days, they must be reported. The birth of a child is not included here, right? A birth of a child is not included here. Changes in custody arrangements must be reported. And if a family loses their job or they change, or there's a change to their education or training program, that's gonna last more than 12 weeks.
Clarice, can you clarify for contact information if we're really just talking about their address, or if that also includes like phone? I'm like picturing the parent contact form, right? Which is phone number, address, like there's lots of information on there. So I just want to be like clear.
Let's just say mainly address, right? Like you want to be able to know if their phone number is changed, if their address is changed, but it's mainly address.
So I'd hate to terminate a family because they didn't update their phone number, right? Like, or their email, because that changes so frequently.
That's basic, right? Would you do that?
No, of course I wouldn't.
Exactly.
But I want to follow policy too. So of course I wouldn't. But that's why I wanted to be clear, because it always says contact information. It doesn't specify saying like a change in address, a change in residence. It says contact information. So that's why I want to make sure, because I would never want to terminate a family for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Bethany, you'll have to let me know if I'm missing any questions in the chat. So these are our changes, which used to be called, right? This used to be called, I'm just gonna stick to what we call it now. But here are the changes that can be reported at any time during authorization or reauthorization, right? Here it says income changes that don't exceed 85%. Families won't know, right? They'll know if their income goes down. They absolutely would want to report that information. But income changes that are under 85%, they can report at any time. And if there's any change to like their service need, that's going to last more than the 12 weeks, right? So here's a list of a number of things. Time limited from an approved activity due to illness, right? Or needing to take care of a family member. We know that we sometimes have seasonal workers, right? That they work in between months. Any reduction here, it says any reduction in work, training, or education hours. Right? So you have some families who may be in school full-time, then it goes part-time, depending on the semester. And that leads right into the next one, which was semester and holiday breaks. And then this last one, what's key to changes regarding work and education and training programs is not exceeding the 12 weeks. Anything that's going to exceed 12 weeks must be reported. Right. And then here just is highlighting what voluntary reporting is, right? Families can report changes at any time that would benefit their families, right? Whether it's going to decrease their parent fee or increase, right? Increase the type of care that they need. Families may go from part-time to full-time, and we would be able to make that adjustment for them. Joanna or Carmen, do you want to add anything here that I may have missed?
I would say that a parent that is reporting that they previously had a part-time service need, but now have a full-time service need, you can't change that authorization until they give you the documentation showing the full-time service need. Meaning you can't say, oh, okay, let me give you a provisional and shorten a 12-month authorization, right? Federal rule does not allow that. You cannot shorten a 12-month authorization for something like that. So they would have to give you the documentation to show that they have a full-time service need, And then you can issue the 12-month authorization for full-time care. Okay.
Can you say that again, Carmen, but slower?
Okay. So, a parent that is reporting that they now may have they now have, let's say they increased their hours. They were previously working 20 hours, and now they've increased to 25 or 30, and want full-time care. You cannot shorten the 12-month authorization, issue them a provisional for full-time. That is not allowed by federal rule. You would have to get the documentation showing that they have the full-time service need hours, all the information, and reauthorize and give them another 12-month authorization.
You have one hand, and then there's a question in the chat. Tracy?
So my question just is, I had a parent on a job search. She's currently picking up hours like catering, but never knows, and it's never a guarantee. How do I document that? Like, I don't want her to get in trouble because she has zero income currently on a job search, but she's picking up these random side things. How do I go about that? Because like I could put in this week that she might have worked like 7 hours or 15 hours, but then the next 3 weeks she works 0.
Right. That is a provisional authorization. She doesn't have to, technically she doesn't have to report that information to you, right? And you don't have to enter it. You shouldn't be entering it into CCFA anyway. So if a family is given a 12-week, or well, soon to be 12-week, currently 26-week provisional, those changes should not be entered into CCFA. That time period is being given to them so that they can seek and certify a valid service need and provide you with the documentation at reauthorization.
And just one other part to that, if a parent's on that provisional job search and then comes down with a medical condition that stops him from starting to look for it, that's still the same thing. And when I reassess him, then I would put him in under a disabled parent.
Parent with a disability still has to be approved by EEC. If the parent, if it's a situation where the parent thinks, I'm not going to be able to work for quite some time, and they report it to you, I would definitely give them the documentation to have filled out so that it's like we're getting ahead of it, right? And so that it can be reviewed by EEC and approved, hopefully before reauthorization. And then when they're coming in to reauthorize, you can just issue a 12-month authorization.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Carmen, there was a question is, if an income change is below 85%, do we still enter it in CCFA?
I have two frames of thought on that one.
Yeah, just say it.
I mean, to me, it's if the parents report it, and it's not going to affect their parent fee, right? So the parent fee was not lowered before, and now they're giving you different income information where it would bring it back to the original base. Then I would say you can make a copy of it, and Alicia may kill me. Alicia, please jump in if I shouldn't be saying this, and put it in the file. They've reported it, right? Or you can enter the non-temp change, which is not going to do absolutely anything in CCFA because the parent fee will remain the same. It's just a method of showing that they have reported.
The only thing I would add is, yes, you can keep it in a file, but when it is pulled for audit, don't include that documentation because it would cause confusion as to, it'll cause, it'll be miscommunication. There'll be a lot of background as to why it's there and not in CCFA. So I wouldn't include it if it's pulled for an actual review, and that's not what was, and no action was actually taken.
Does that make sense for folks?
That made so much sense.
That sounded like a relief. Was that a relief, Kelly?
I am cracking up over here because Alicia said do not include it.
So, what? Okay, Alicia, come off of mute. Will you tell the folks that will you tell them that I drive you crazy? You can tell them.
And so the reason why I say not included is because it does, first, it does become a finding as to why you didn't include it until we get the backstory, and now we've cleaned it up. Okay, and so that's the reason why. It becomes an income miscalculation, which most of you guys would hear from Frank, like this wasn't entered, income miscalculation finding, but then the story comes out, oh no, the parent just was providing some information that they didn't need to. And so that's why.
The family was voluntarily reporting. So what I'm going to highlight here is that, like, what Alicia is talking about is like, what is audit looking for? And we're gonna, that will happen in the program integrity module. But really what audit is looking for is like, did you determine this family eligible correctly? And do you have the proper documentation to support what we see in CCFA, right? Like that's part of what they're doing. So they're going to be looking for that documentation. So if they see some documentation that's related to eligibility and it doesn't reflect an action in CCFA, that's what they're looking at. That's it. I hate to tell you that, like, that's actually it. When I understood that much, I'm like, okay, we just want to make sure that families are being determined eligible the right way and that the financial piece, the financial calculations are right. Was that right, Alicia? Because they had to teach me, because I was like, I need to understand what the concerns are around audit, but that's what they're looking for.
That's correct.
That's what they're looking for. Okay. Can we move past voluntary reporting? Wow, my screens are jumping.